In this video, we're going to be looking at perspective and how it relates to art. Perspective is how you can visualize the world around you in a realistic way to make things look like that they have depth in a two-dimensional surface. Perspective is more of where the eye is or where the viewer is in relation to the artwork. So you could have a perspective where you're looking down, that's called a bird's eye view. Or you could have a perspective where you're looking directly at the artwork at eye level. Believe it or not, perspective was not always used in art. Prior to the Renaissance, the printing press was not available. At the very least, not widely available. There was printing presses that were created, but they were not in popular circulation and not everyone had access to books. But what they did have access to, they could always go to a public area and view the artwork on display. So perspective was not really something that the artist was focusing on. Artists were more focused on telling a story through art. This is a good example of how a story is told through art without using proper perspective. We can see that in this artwork, there is a city or a kingdom that is under siege by another kingdom. Obviously, if this was a realistic height and the perspective was to scale, they would just be basically toddlers playing in a little mini castle. So what happened in the Renaissance to make perspective something that people wanted to focus on? Well, the creation of the printing press allowed for more publications to be released. Therefore, people had other ways of consuming information other than just from art. This opened the doors to artists to allow them to experiment with different techniques. One of them being perspective. This is an early example of one-point perspective. One-point perspective means that there is a center point that all of the lines converge at. One-point perspective is a great, easy way to give the illusion of depth. As you can see, the corners and the straight lines inside of the archway all lead down to one center point. Using some basic mathematical principles, you can actually gauge how tall people are and place them correctly in the correct scale depending on the placement of the character in the artwork as compared to the scale of the lines that are going to the vanishing point. Now, if all that sounded really complicated, don't worry. It's actually one of the easiest art forms to master. There's only 3 types of lines in this whole artwork. Those lines are horizontal lines, vertical lines, and diagonal lines. With a vanishing point, all diagonal lines that you draw will be going to the vanishing point. You also have horizontal lines. Horizontal lines are lines that go left to right. They don't go at an angle. It's perfectly straight across. That is a horizontal line. Vertical lines are lines that go straight up and down. Again, they're not at an angle. They go from the top down to the bottom in a straight line. In one-point perspective, those are the only 3 lines you got. You either have a line that goes straight across, or you have a line that goes straight up and down, or the lines go to the vanishing point. It is one of the easiest methods of creating perspective there is. That doesn't mean that that's the only method of creating perspective. In fact, you can have as many vanishing points as you want. Typically, you see 1 to 3 vanishing points. This artwork by Vincent van Gogh, it has one-point perspective in it. And as you can see, all the lines eventually go to the window, which is the vanishing point. This artwork, however, has multiple vanishing points in it. It actually has 2 different vanishing points, and one of them even goes completely off the page. And finally, this is an example of a 3-point perspective artwork, where you have 3 vanishing points, and each angle of the lines go to one of those vanishing points. And what is your project? Well, that really depends on what your class is. This video covers perspective in general. So what your lesson's going to be is probably going to be in the next video in the Google Classroom. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Hope you better understand perspective, and I'll see you in the next video.